Grafton, Massachusetts. So basically we've had a lot of great interviews thus far. Greg Koch, Matt Heafy, Tosin Abasi, Chris from the Foo Fighters. We've had a lot of really interesting guys come on basically the show and talk about their lives, what they're dealing with, what's going on with their career, just during this whole pandemic. And as I said before, we're all dealing with ways to avoid this current pandemic. And now after how you're seeing like it's affected the music industry as well as everyone's lives, it's just a social and business crisis at this point. So just remember to adhere to your state's regulations and also, stay away from one another and, be very careful out there. We don't want to see anybody get hurt. But today I have a very special guest. I'm going to put him on the screen, Mr. Chris Scannell from Vertical Horizon. Scannell,
or
right?
Matt. Yeah, but actually my
Scannell?
first name's Matt.
Matt Scannell. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was reading Chris from
No, it's
Fishman's
okay.
email. Matt, yeah, sorry, Matt Scannell. Sorry. I was
Sorry,
reading
I
my
was
email.
gonna go. I figured I could just go with it, and then we could just do the whole interview. I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm Chris. What's up? I'm Chris." But I'm not.
Chris is the VP of marketing who hooked us up, and I was reading his email. I'm sorry at the same time.
That's okay.
But
It's
hey,
all right. You're multitasking.
I know I have like a million cameras going on, but Matt, it's awesome to have you here. And again, like I'm a huge fan. I just learned something pretty special, but before I do so, let me just state this to everybody. We are currently streaming this on our YouTube Live, our Facebook Live, and also Twitch. So if you have any questions for Matt, he's right here, ready to go. But I just found out that you're from where I'm from. I'm from, I was born and raised in Danvers, Massachusetts. You are from Worcester, right?
Yeah, from Worcester. I grew up in Worcester, not far from your house right now.
Well, yeah, Grafton, Massachusetts is only like 10,
Like 20 minutes away.
yeah, 10, 20 minutes away. So, like, let's talk about that. I mean, obviously, you must have family still in this area, right?
I do. Yeah, my mom and dad still live in Massachusetts. My brother is a doctor. He lives in Newburyport. So yeah, my family really is still in Massachusetts. I'm the only one who went out to California. But I try to get home as much as I can. I love Massachusetts. It's a great place.
Yeah, Massachusetts is one of the best spots to be in, as far as I'm concerned. So,
Yeah.
what are your family? I mean, you're in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
Right now, right?
Yeah. I'm in LA. I moved out here in 2001. I lived in New York City before that for like 9 years, and now I'm out in LA, and I love it. I love it. It's a great place to be. Obviously, I have to mention, as you did, that it's a very strange time for all of us, and I encourage everyone to pay attention to all the all the health providers who are giving us ideas about how to stave off this crazy and terrible disease.
Yeah.
So wash your hands. Don't come into direct contact with people. Social distance. All those things. But I don't think you can say it too much. Like I know people are taking it seriously, but we really, really have to take this seriously.
We do, and in your area, I mean, you guys have a lot of homeless people around there, right? Like just on the street, kind of stuck.
It's one of the biggest cities in the United States, so of course there are those issues. Yeah, it's challenging for everybody, but yeah, certainly some more so than others. And I'm very fortunate to have a place that I can isolate and eat food out of a can, and
You do have a roof there, right?
Slim it down. I do. There's a roof. There's a roof and a fridge. I'm good.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Lots of soap.
I don't know how far away you live from 1720, but I play in a heavy metal band named Unearth, and we just played at 1720. That's downtown, kind of downtown LA. Are you near there?
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm actually not. It's funny how this city is like geographically, when you look out on a map, you're like, oh, it's LA. But when you get here, it's so broad. It's such it's unlike Manhattan, which is fairly manageable geographically speaking. But LA is it's just like, it just sort of vomited all over itself and moved. It's not small. So you can get places. It's just a commitment.
Yeah, no, totally. I see, like when I'm there, I just see so many people on the street, so many people living out of tents and whatnot, and it's scary to think that we have a current pandemic happening, And then
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of people that are being, social distancing and staying away from each other. But then there's some people that are less fortunate and they have to be in herds and in clusters and
Yeah.
stuff. What's your feeling on that? I mean, are you seeing a lot of people out there on the street?
Well, I mean, in fairness, I'm not really leaving my house. So, I'm trying to follow that remit pretty dogmatically. Just stay home and stay healthy. But yeah, no, it's one of my friends works at a homeless shelter in downtown LA, and she's confronted with it every day. And her name's Laura, and she's just constantly going onto the front line like that and trying to help people as best she can. I mean, it's challenging on so many levels. It's hard for me to even grapple with, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. So what are your folks doing back here or your family?
Yeah, my mom and dad are taking it seriously. I was a little worried about my dad, particularly because he's, a stubborn New Englander, like, it's fine, no problem. But he's taking it seriously. I'm grateful for that. He usually does the shopping, and he's sort of backed off and trying to not go to the grocery store every day.
Yeah, I'm having the same issue with my folks. Like they're in their 70s, so it's like they think that because they've been staying home for a while, they've been good and good enough
Yeah.
to go out and
Oh,
interact with other people. But that's not how it
go out and
works.
lick each other's faces. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do that, mom and dad. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So tell me about. I want to know more about you and kind of how the band started. And I know that you probably get asked this all the time, but being
That's fine.
someone from Massachusetts, understanding the climate, especially being from Worcester. Usually, I was more so towards the North Shore, and it was
Right.
easier to kind of integrate yourself with Boston. But being from Worcester, you're in between Western Mass and Eastern Mass, and a lot of people don't know that it's like two different countries, right?
Well, and in fairness, the band really didn't start in Massachusetts at all. I was at school in Washington D.C. at Georgetown University,
True. Yeah.
and so that's where the band started. It really had nothing to do with Massachusetts. It was only that great sense of like a homecoming that whenever we would come back, to the New England area, we'd feel like we were coming home. But we didn't really slog it out so much. Although we did, we played like the Middle East in Boston and those clubs. I mean, we did play all over the place, but really in terms of starting the band, like our weekly residency gigs were all in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so let me again. Yeah, maybe I prefaced it wrong. Like mainly your career growing up, you must have had
Oh yeah.
other bands prior to Vertical Horizon that have led you to
Yeah,
that
yeah,
point,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, so I mean, mostly it was just for fun. So I went away to a boarding school out in Western Massachusetts, and it was all boys, and so I had a lot of time to like,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it was really vigorous academically, so I did have to work very, very hard, and those habits have served me well in my life. But in terms of free time, it was like I'm going to play guitar. I'm not going to like go chase girls. So but yeah, we had a couple bands there, and my buddy Jeff Chartrand, who's an amazing guitar player, he and I started this band called Off the Cuff out in
nice.
at Deerfield Academy, and that was fun. And then my lifelong best friend is a doctor in Boston named Jim Levine, and he and I had a band of a couple different names in his basement. And we never really got out of the basement. Maybe we played like one or two gigs. But it was great. The purity of that time, music for the joy of it.
Yeah.
Like that's something I've always tried to stay connected with. And I don't know if you've felt this at all as you've like changed from maybe a musical hobbyist to a pro. Like there's a fairly seismic shift that happens because like music, the guitar, I turned to the guitar for solace. It was purely for fun.
Hmm.
And then once it became my job, it was like, oh, I gotta, it's how I earn my living. I mean, have you noticed that shift in yourself?
Yeah, well, we went from playing. Obviously, I think your career path was a little different, like as far as getting picked up and how you got picked up. But being in a hardcore slash metal band, we were playing. Basically living out of a van for about 4 or 5 years. But earlier than that, playing VFW halls because our scene was generated in VFW halls, not necessarily in clubs downtown. So
Right,
we
right,
would
right.
do that all over the country. But then one day it's like you're on Ozfest, you're playing with like the
That's
Pantera
amazing.
guys, or you're on
Right.
tour with Slipknot, and that's when everything changes and
Wow.
and you see things differently, right? Like
Hmm.
like just your whole what you remember as being like a part of the scene and being hip and being cool, then
Yeah.
everything that you thought was a parody becomes your real life. You have
Yeah.
managers and people trying to dress you or telling you what to do, right?
Oh yeah. Oh,
So
so
let's talk about that. Like that's what I'm most excited about is like okay, so you made the shift. You said Georgetown, right? And you met up the
yes.
guys with in DC. So
Yeah.
how did that go? Was it just an organic experience? You guys just kind of met and
Well, it was an acoustic duo for years and years and years with a really talented guy by the name of Keith Kane. And Keith and I really paid our dues all over the country, really, but largely from like Texas over to say like Florida, up the East Coast, and through like maybe we'd get as far west as like Kentucky and Tennessee and Chicago and stuff like that. And we would do that just in our Ford Explorer and just
so
go for
how
like
hard is that though? Because okay, like you know how it is with a rock band. You could be louder than everybody and make everybody
yeah
either aggravated or happy. But when you're acoustic, like there's people trying to like you're right about to
yeah
play the most passionate song you've ever written and people are like
yes.
talking, right?
Yeah, well, it does sort of steel you, right? I mean, I do feel maybe a bit more bulletproof now when I walk on stage because of all those gigs. It's a really astute observation. Yeah, totally. I mean, when you're playing something that is kind of sensitive and emotional and feeling like, and someone's, their glasses are clinking and like someone's having an argument in the back. If they're having an argument in the back and you're a rock band, no one can hear it.
Yeah.
So that's why we're a band now, Ken.
That's so funny. That's so funny. So okay, so then you go from the acoustic circuit to like getting a band together, right? You wrote some songs that you were
Yeah.
passionate about, right?
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to work in Washington D.C. with John Alasia and Doug Derryberry, two very talented producer musicians, and John and Doug were really close to the Dave Matthews guys, and so we sort of aimed for the stars and asked Carter Beauford if he would play drums on our second record, and he did. He said yes, which was just stunningly great and was such a thrill. So we had this option or opportunity, let's say, to like expand the sound from just two acoustic guitars to more of a band thing, and one of the greatest drummers in the world to do it with. So that was a lot of fun. And then it became like, okay, well, let's tour with a band and expand it that way. And at first, it was kind of more of an acoustic-based band, but I had always played, rock guitar growing up. Well, not always, but when I was playing, I would be trying to learn Rush songs, and I'd be trying to learn,
Yeah.
I mean, anything, Yngwie Malmsteen and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so then we gradually kind of expanded it into more of a band feeling,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's what we've done.
You guys are obviously a tremendous band, but how is that shit? I got to ask you, like,
Yeah.
let's get into it. How is the shift of being like playing in a band, getting signed, and then dealing with all the stuff that you kind of you don't realize is a part of the music business, right? Like paying
Right.
your management 15% or paying the booking agent this and having, you even probably got down to the point where you had a friend work in your front house and then your manager rolled over to you and said like, well, we need to like get a guy who's actually used to an arena tour, right? Like, so you had to fire your best friend in order to do that. How was that shift for you?
Well, it's always hard. It's always hard to like grow. Growth takes effort, and there's some pain involved. And yeah, that's true. I mean, we had a series of sort of tour managers who are really just really dear friends of ours.
Yeah.
And we joke, but they knew it even at the time. We jokingly call them tour buddies.
Yep.
And they were tour managers, and they would do the merch, and they would do this, and they did really, all things considered, like a great job. But it wasn't their destiny to turn into a tour manager for a band. They were going to go on and do something else. They knew it, we knew it, and we also, I think, knew that at some point we'd probably need to graduate to like the real guys, right?
Yeah.
But man, I got to tell you, one of the most important things, and I think it's mostly true for us and for me, is to try to be good to people.
Yep.
Like to try to be truthful and fair and frank, and that takes that's hard. That's not always easy to do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I think generally speaking, like we've come through it pretty well. I think the people who have worked with us and maybe in the past and maybe don't work with us presently, like there's still a sense of brotherhood, and there's still, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
a deep connection because of the times that we've shared. And
Yeah.
these are really unique experiences. I mean, it's nice talking to you, to someone who's done it. Very often, like when we talk to, and not to disparage any press people, but like, if you haven't slept in the back of a van for a month straight, like you kind of just can't get it. I mean,
Yeah. Well, there
you
are
know,
some kids nowadays that are getting signed from just having a single or YouTube video online.
right.
And that's
Sure.
and that's insane to me because you're not prepared for, again, like even you just said, you cut your teeth playing in acoustic clubs. I would never do that. Just because I couldn't mentally handle it. But like
Well,
you have to go through those stages in order to actually get on stage and command an audience, which you
yeah.
clearly can do.
Right. Yeah, I do think having that sense of like, I'm going to lead us now, right? You walk on that stage and you have that sense like and it's not an arrogance. It's just let us do what we do, and we'll take you to a place, and we'll all do it together because the audience is giving us energy and we're giving it back, and it sort of spirals upwards. You know this,
Yeah.
and it becomes this glorious community thing, which is one of the things that's so hard about this time right now.
Yeah.
For guys like us, it's like we feed off of that energy. And I haven't been on an airplane like to go play a gig. This is the longest I think in maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, it's all for a good cause, and we want to try to flatten the curve, and I completely get it.
Yeah.
But as a guy who's like, it's in my DNA to do this stuff.
You're
It's
stuck at
strange.
home. Yeah, you're just stuck at home and you're not able to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, my band was actually just in and when this virus broke out in what was it, Italy, Milan. We were there, right there, and like downtown, taking pictures and texting our families and stuff. So yeah, we were
Dude.
stuck in that point. But we kind of knew what was going on in China prior to that. But then we ended up finishing the tour for we had 1 week left and we're still okay. And right before we left, our booking agent in Europe said, all right, the US government called us and the EU called us and they're getting you out of here, right? So they basically dismissed us, and they said we were at no threat because we were never in an area that was a questionable area for us. So
Right.
so
Wow,
luckily
good
we
for you.
escaped it, but there's some bands out there that weren't as lucky. Do you happen to know any bands that you're friends with that were out touring at that time and someone got sick or anything
No,
like that?
I don't. I'm so grateful. I mean, I do know people. Unfortunately, one of my best friends, his sister just passed away.
Yeah.
This is very close to home. It's hitting very close to home. But I don't know any bands who are directly sort of dealing with it personally.
Yeah, we have one artist that came on our live feed, I think last week. His name's Devin Townsend, and he had
Oh, yeah.
he had a tour going on. He had to stop it, and he started a GoFundMe to support all of the people that worked for his tour because he couldn't shell out of pocket to pay
right.
for them. So
That's great.
so luckily he's been able to gather funds and distribute them
That's
to the
great.
people that he cares about.
Great. Good for him. Good for him.
But yeah, back onto your career, and listen, I'm so fixated on this just because we're geographically from the same area, and it takes a lot. There's a lot of competition in Massachusetts back in, I think, when we were all coming up to compete to get out of Massachusetts. So being from here, did any of that work ethic kind of did you push that over to when you went to DC and when you went to Georgetown, you met your guys? Were you already equipped
Oh, yeah.
with like being from Massachusetts with it being so fast paced here? Did that help?
Oh, dude. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it still helps me every day. I mean, I just, you gotta get up and you do it. You just gotta do it. No one's gonna do it but you.
Yeah.
So
It's
get your ass out of
either
bed and
that
do
or
it.
you're digging a hole, right?
Yeah.
You could be
Yeah,
working
yeah, I mean,
construction, or you could be rocking out in front of thousands of people.
And to be fair, like I'm always aware that that I am able to do what I love to do for a living. But like, there's nothing wrong with digging holes for a living.
No.
You just gotta find your peace and happiness where you can get it. And I think, and that's one of the beautiful things about having guitar in your life. And I always say this, like, it doesn't have to be how you earn your living. It doesn't have anything to do with how you earn your living. In fact, it might be better if it's not,
Yeah.
because really, because there can be a lot of heartache involved in trying, sort of tying your wagon to a guitar or to music, right?
Yeah.
If you're not relying upon that to pay the bills, there can be something really beautiful about that. Obviously, it's not the path I've chosen, but some of my friends still, we were talking about how like it goes from being your uh, from your hobby to your vocation,
Yeah.
right? And some of my friends who are happiest with music are the ones who just still have it as their hobby. They've got their room with their gear and everything, and it's totally fun.
Yeah.
So I always try to, like, for people who are watching this, like, it doesn't have to be your job. It does not have to be your job. For some of us, there's no plan B. As Rhett Shull says, like, it's what you have to do. It's in your DNA. I've likened it to like another arm. Like I have another appendage. You know what I mean?
It's totally true.
And I could no sooner stop playing music than I could cut off my own arm. It's just not something I could do.
Yeah, that's what happens. I mean, if you don't genuinely love sitting, and believe it or not, whether you're in the biggest band of the world or the smallest band of the world, it always starts with you being by yourself in a room and having to like hash out that material that you either want people to hear or don't want people to hear, right?
Totally. And it's interesting that you bring that up because I think one of the things about this time for me personally, I'm fortunate that so much of my life has been spent in isolation.
Yeah.
Like when I'm making music,
Yeah.
it's 99% isolation.
Yeah.
So it's not like my favorite quality about myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I actually have over time, I've thought like, man, you need to like reach out a bit more, be a bit more social, have more, relationships, friendships, whatever, because by nature, I'm kind of like, okay, let's just circle it in and like, and I can be real small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's always amazing to connect with your fan base, like from the stage or through meet and greets and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
there's a time and a place for that, and I think all of us, especially musicians, this is obviously a horrible pandemic, but most musicians are equipped to sit in one chair for 8 hours and stare out of a window and wait to play a gig, right?
Totally.
So we're
Staring out a window is working for us. Like I'm thinking of riffs and rhymes and you know what I mean, lyrics. And I'm working, just staring out the window, looking like I'm zoning out. It is a really different.
Yeah.
I don't know, different path.
When
Yeah.
I first got hired at Fishman, my other guitar player Buzz was like, "Oh, is there another gig there for me?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, maybe. What's your qualifications?" He's like, "I could sit in one place for 8 to 10 hours and just not say a word and stare out the window." Is there any gig that you have there that requires that skill? And I'm like, "No."
CEO, buddy, you're the CEO.
Yeah, you're going up. But so let's talk about like Vertical Horizon. You guys break, right? And what's it like? And this is the only way I can kind of explain is that for those of you that are in bands and understand what the grind is, when you actually have the hit and you're playing it live, what's that feeling like when you get to play music like it's a vacation, right? People are like, what's that feeling when people are singing the words on top of you while you're singing it to the audience?
Well, so I always have to bring this up to reel it back a little bit. So I went to see Billy Joel play at Madison Square Garden on the Stormfront tour back in whatever year that would have been. And when he played Piano Man, he stopped singing and let us sing it because we were singing much louder than he could. And I was like in the worst seat at the back at the top. And it made that moment all the more beautiful for me. And I thought, well, that's got to be the highest honor for a songwriter to experience just this wave of passion and connection. That's really what it is. This wave of connection from the audience to you, the artist, the writer. So for me, I've been stunned and humbled, elated, overwhelmed by that experience from the first time it happened to the last time it happened.
Oh, we got to pause real quick. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just heard you. Sorry, you paused for a second. Hold on one second. We're experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties. All right, are you there? Ooh.
you're still, oh, okay.
We're
Yeah,
here.
I see
We're
you
here
now.
now.
Are
Yeah,
we
yeah.
good?
Yep.
We're live?
Skype is mad at us, but keep
So,
going. Yeah.
so, yeah, Skype was like, enough with the talk.
Yeah.
No, but it was in Jakarta, and there were 20,000 people there singing songs that I wrote by myself, staring out a window.
Yep.
Right? Like, I still can't really even begin to process that the songs have traveled, they've traveled from where you are in Grafton all over the world.
Yep.
And like, what a privilege, yeah, it is truly overwhelming. And yeah, I was about to say I never take it for granted, but like, I can't even take, how could you? How could you? This is like the highest honor that an audience could give a songwriter, is know the words and the melody by heart so deeply, connect with it so deeply that they're going to sing it louder than you can.
Yeah.
And thanks to Billy Joel for giving me that experience, when I was a kid, to aim or dream for that. Although even in that moment, sorry to keep going on, but even in that moment, I don't think I would have had the hubris to think that could ever happen to me.
So with that being said, it's cool that you have that perspective, because it's refreshing to hear, because there are some musicians out there that believe that being a musician and doing what they do is a privilege. It's something that they carry on their shoulders, saying like, oh, I wrote that song, I'm fantastic. The fact that you're still humbled after all these years and playing these shows and having people enjoy your music is awesome. It's cool,
dude. I mean, I truly believe in my heart that that's the only attitude to have, like the attitude of gratitude, right? Just be grateful. It's never a bad thing to be grateful.
Yeah.
It's never going to do anything less than serve you well, ever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We have a question from Jack. Okay. He's saying, what's up? And is there a song that you've written that meant the most to you? By the way, nice meeting you in Virginia on the beach last fall.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Jack. It's interesting. I mean, the easy answer is they all mean something to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have finished them. I guess it's not that I wouldn't have written them, it's that I wouldn't have finished them.
Yeah.
The first one that comes to mind right now is a song called Save Love from The Lost Mile. And it's basically, the lyrics for me are like, what's important to you? Essentially the theme of the song is, we can burn everything else down. We can let it all go. If we have each other, then that's all that matters. And, the Beatles said it, love is all you need. I found my little wrinkle, my little twist on that with a song called Save Love on The Lost Mile.
That's awesome. Next question. Eric Stratton is asking, did you enjoy working with Richard Marx? I couldn't expect you to say no for this. So what's it like? What was it like working with Richard Marx?
He's such a pain in the ass. No, Richard Marx, hey, Eric, first of all, thank you very much for asking the question. Richard is, he's the varsity team captain, right, of songwriting. So like, you get in the room and you want to be like varsity level, so you bring your A game. I love that. I used to play tennis a lot when I was a kid. I started playing it more again recently, and that one-on-one thing, that songwriting is very much, I think of it almost like improv comedy, or you can think of it as a ball that is in the air between you. When you're writing as collaborative songwriters, you need to keep the ball in the air. You need to keep it going. So Richard and I have this way of like, there's this old comedy, improv comedy rule called yes and. So like, if you get into, if you're doing an improv thing and someone says, I'm an astronaut and I'm making French fries, and the person next to them says, no, you're not, well, then the sketch is done, right? But if you say, yeah, you're an astronaut making French fries right now, and I got the turmeric, and I got the this, and then you're creating something. And collaborative songwriting is very much a yes and kind of thing. That's not to say that you don't tactfully make your sort of feelings known if you feel like you can make it better, because it's all about making it better, right?
Yeah.
But Richard and I have a really, really good dialogue, and method as writers together. He also happens to be like a supremely funny, you know, really good guy. He's just, you know, he's become like a brother to me, and you know, I love the guy, but I also love. Look, I've been a fan since his first record. Like you know, I'm a huge Mike Landau fan. Mike Landau is one of my absolute favorite guitar players, and I remember hearing that record, hearing, you know, Hold On to the Nights and Remember Manhattan and all these tunes that just you know, that I just loved, Endless Summer Nights, you know, killer guitar parts, and learning, you know, over time now through my relationship with Richard, I've learned that Richard is a great guitar player, um, but he also conceives of great guitar parts. So very often, like, he would be the guy who would be like leaning on Michael and saying like, hey Mike, you can, you know, what about something like this, you know, at the beginning of Endless Summer Nights or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And that again, the collaborative process, right? You know, and Landau's a god as far as guitar players go, but he's also a guy who's like, oh cool, you have an idea for a great part, tell me. He's not like, no, I got this.
Yep.
I'm the guy. And I think that's another great lesson for us as musicians. Like, you know, never be closed to new ideas or new perspectives. Like, someone might come up with something, an idea in a room, whether you're writing with someone or playing a guitar part, whatever. They, you know, the saxophone player may come up with a better guitar chord than you could ever have conceived of, just because he hears things differently.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And Richard, because he really comes from piano, sometimes he thinks with a more of a pianist's ear, and that's cool.
Well, think about it. He's using two hands. You're using one, you know?
Yeah. And also, like, he's such a good singer. I mean, you know, he's up there. He's probably the best I've ever known as far as like being able to just crush harmony vocals, you know, quickly, one take, just boom, lay it down. Like, if you listen to All Night Long, the Lionel Richie tune,
Yeah.
that's actually Richard doing the all night.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if you next time you hear that, you're gonna hear it and you're gonna be like, oh my God, that's totally Richard Marx.
If I did that, if that was my only claim to fame, I would just walk around and sing that harmony all day to people.
Dude, I'd hand out business cards. Like, Mama Lise Bessie Mon Pa. Hey, Jumbo. Just take a little time. Just read it.
I'm the all night guy. Yeah. You recognize me. So let me ask you about that. So I'm a fan, so I gotta ask, like, so there's different types of writing styles, right? Like, and I don't mean to get like so deep into this, but maybe this might help somebody out there that is stuck writing. You could either sit there with a guitar and explore chords and kind of just figure out your own way into a song, in and out of a song. But then there's certain guys, and a lot of the stuff that you've written in your earlier point in your career is formulaic, right? So is there any type of math that you kind of attach to your songs? Is there specific like chord progressions and substitution that you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? There's like certain moves.
Well, I think there's a vocabulary that we all kind of naturally hear and feel, you know, like, although pre-choruses are kind of like not in fashion anymore, and I don't really care. There's a ton of pre-choruses on the new Vertical Horizon record. I just don't care about stuff like that. Like, I like a pre-chorus, I like a bridge. You know, so there are certain things that that you kind of know you're going to hear, like if you're predominantly in the one, like the major one chord, like let's just be in E. So if the verses are in E, then probably it's not inconceivable that you're going to hear the F sharp minor in the pre-chorus that's going to, you know, lead you up to something else, or, you know what I mean? There are certain chord voicings that we have heard just by virtue of the fact that we've listened for so long to so many great songs. We've kind of just like by osmosis kind of like brought those words into our vocabulary. Having said that, I try not to, and there are definitely times that I do kind of adhere to the like 1-5-6-4 formula, because sometimes that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm trying more and more when I can to not not at the expense of the song, but like, can we maybe go somewhere else that we haven't spent, all of us collectively spent so much time in?
Yeah.
And I sometimes when I listen to the radio or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, and a playlist, and just hear like when they're all the 1 5 6 4 chord progressions in the chorus, or the 6 4 1 5, it's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's a little bit of fatigue there, I think. I've used those chord progressions. I'll use them again. But like when we can do something different, let's do that. Having said that, like 1 5 4, like Baba O'Reilly, like is anyone ever going to be bummed to hear 1 5 4 in the spirit of Baba O'Reilly? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there are some things that are just like always cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, to circle back to your question, I am trying to let melody, cadence, rhythmic phrasing sort of push me into new directions. And sometimes I'm staying on one chord longer than I ever would have before. like allowing myself to make it more about the vocal, make it more about the rhythmic variation in the vocal or the melody, and get tension from the melody, not necessarily from the chords. Having said that also, though, I do try to approach the guitar from a more pianistic view, where there are, and a lot of that came from me like learning as much as I could of Eric Johnson's music, where you would hear him like add a ninth into a chord, so it became more like hearing a piano player voice out a chord that had second intervals of seconds, or that kind of thing, that just it added tension within the chord, and it took a regular major chord from being kind of stock, first position kind of thing, to like, oh wow, listen to that beautiful dimension that just opened up in there by adding the ninth. So I'm not terribly musically literate in terms of theory, but my ear's pretty good, and so I always try, well, not always, but I do try to expand the guitar's harmonic field a little bit more the way a keyboard player or a piano player would.
Yeah. Listen, I've been feeling you out for during this whole conversation, and I'm so glad we got to that, because you obviously know what you're talking about, and you definitely are passionate about it. And there's not a lot of people that have refined the craft of writing music. What a lot of people do now, and what I've seen a lot, there's tendencies of a band getting big, and then just there's a lot of copycats, right? They just take their chords, they start moving around, they start making their band feel like that. But you definitely obviously have a sense of how to write a song from scratch, and I'm sure you're obviously good at writing different genres of music because of that knowledge. So that's really cool to see. It's refreshing to see an artist be passionate about it.
Oh, that's kind of you. I am like obsessed with the craft.
Yep.
Like the craft of songwriting, to me, I just got chills. Like I love it.
Yep.
I love it. And I also love just letting the song be what it wants to be, and not not trying to force it in or pigeonhole it into the flavor or color of the month. Just let it be what it needs to be, Well, and that's one of the beautiful things of being, that's one of the beautiful things about being a little bit more independent now, is that like, okay, let's put it out.
Well, when we're off the live stream, I have a theory that I want to throw by you just to see if you agree with it or not. But let's move on to some Fishman stuff. You've been a Fishman artist for a long time.
Long time.
You use the Aura, correct? Like live?
Yep. Yeah, I use the Aura, and I use the I've used the Matrix.
Matrix Infinity pickup. Yep.
So I've used Taylor guitars for years and years and years. Since probably, let's see, that would have been since like 94. So a long, long time. And since 94, I've used Fishman stuff. So I had a Taylor guitar that I brought to like my local, I think it was McDuff's Music out on Route 9 in Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
I think it was McDuff's. And they added a Fishman, one of the Fishman undersaddle pickups, and then it kind of just it went from there. And when Taylor kind of brought out their Expression system, and I say this with nothing but love, I was like, cool guys, but I'd actually like it better if you just put my matrix system back in the guitar, or let's train this one out. So the guitar that I use now all the time whenever I'm recording or performing live acoustically is a Taylor 910 with the matrix system in it, and it's wonderful. I absolutely love it.
So
And the Aura systems kill it too.
yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. The Aura system, I think, is the most fascinating, one of the most fascinating things that we currently make. It's you could tell us a little bit about how you use it, but I mean, mainly you're just kind of switching through your guitar's presets as far as different microphone combinations, right? So how is it
Yep.
how is it that you use the Aura?
So it depends room to room, night to night. Sometimes, so I learned about. Let me reel it back. Most of the time, when I'm using the Aura, it's when I'm actually using my Paul Reed Smith guitar that has a piezo bridge pickup in it. And when I saw Alex Lifeson use that very same system on the Test for Echo tour, my mind just exploded. I was like, "What the heck just happened?"
Nice.
Like, it's like there are two guitar players on stage. We can do more work, guys. And actually, that's one thing I would say to everybody who's watching this. Like, if you're an electric guitar player, get a piezo bridge for one or more of your guitars and run two lines out of the guitar, however you want to do it. And you've just doubled your real estate on that stage. Use them both at the same time. That's one of the things that irks me, or have the ability to use them both at the same time. Doesn't mean you should all the time. But like some of the guys that I work with, like when we first start doing it, they're like, well, I'll just use the acoustic here and then I'll switch to the electric here. And I'm almost always like, no, let's use them both. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, change your electric tone to make it cleaner or whatever. I mean, I'm a huge fan of like multi-track, like Trevor Rabin, when he'll double a solo and put in a piezo. It's that quacky, super compressed. I want to say that he is a Larrivee guy or Alvarez guy. He's an Alvarez guy, like ultra compressed, super light strings, doubling like on the Yes song "Lift Me Up." He does this killer guitar sound solo, and it's doubled with this super ultra compressed piezo acoustic sound. Don't sell that short. Like, we can use that in all kinds of different applications. So for me, the R system is on my big touring board, and yeah, some nights it's like, man, a smaller body will sound good. It's kind of it's all just like, what am I feeling that day? And I tend to mix in a fair bit of the dry signal as well. Like, and for our applications, I do need it to cut pretty well. I don't need it necessarily to sound entirely like a real acoustic guitar, because we've got a full-on rock band that's going,
Yep.
like blasting away. But it's an amazing technology, and I love that little box.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for being so articulate as far as what you like, and thank you for using Fishman products.
Oh yeah.
I got to tell you before I end this, I got to say, my friends will kill me because they're definitely on the feed. So
Uh-huh.
I'm in Europe, and we're obviously a heavy metal tour. You'd assume that we're playing like screaming heavy metal like for the gig, but we actually decided to make a mid 2000s like kind of jammer playlist. We call it a dinner mixer. So it's like we would
Uh-huh.
eat dinner to this mixer, and Vertical Horizon definitely has 2 tracks on that.
Oh,
So
I love
so
it, dude. I made the cut.
yeah, so you got a bunch of long-haired heavy metal guys just
Oh, that's wicked,
jamming
man.
Vertical Horizon to their dinner.
Oh, dude, that's a huge compliment, man. Thank you so much.
so
That's really nice.
so again, Matt, thank you so much for joining us on this live feed. It was really cool to get to see what your path was, your journey, finding yourself from being from some small area, Worcester, Massachusetts, all the way up now, living in LA, living in a castle in LA, driving
It's
Lamborghinis to
just a
your gig.
bunch of amps. It's just a bunch of amps and a refrigerator. That's all.
That's awesome. Well, guys, if you're out there watching, tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we have Mr. Steve Stevens coming on from Billy Idol here to tell us his little story about his life and what he's dealing with right now. And it's really cool to just kind of connect with all of our artists while we're out here. So, Matt, hang tight. But everybody, thank you very much for watching. This is Matt Scannell from Vertical Horizon. And we